I worked myself into an early grave for my heiress wife, Evelyn Reed, 30 years old. The end. At my funeral, Evelyn, my Ice Queen CEO of a wife, was a statue. Her expression, blank. I heard her say to her mother, cold and clear, "He was just a tool. The company will run fine without him." Then I opened my eyes. I was 23 again, the morning after our wedding. Evelyn tossed a document onto my chest. A performance clause, addendum to our prenup. "Sign it," she said. "Prove your worth." I watched the shock spread across her face as I tore the contract into tiny pieces. "Times have changed, Evelyn," I said. "From now on, I have only one job: to spend all your money." For the first time since I'd known her, a crack appeared in that perfect, glacial facade. The sterile, antiseptic smell of the hospital still lingered in my nose. I was floating, watching myself in the ICU bed, a mess of tubes and wires. The heart monitor flatlined. Evelyn walked in. The doctor handed her the death certificate, and she signed it. Her hand was steady, not a single ripple of emotion on her face. For the woman I had spent 7 years killing myself to love, there wasn't a single tear. Outside the door, her mother, Karen, was wringing her hands. "Evelyn, what are we going to do?" He was managing the Southgate project entirely on his own. Now that he's gone, he was just a tool. Evelyn cut her off, her voice colder than the ICU air. "The company will run fine without him. Don't worry, I've already found people to take over his projects." So that was it. A lifetime of grinding myself to dust. And in her eyes, I was just a component, easily replaced. I laughed, a silent, shaking laugh that rattled my soul. Then, a sudden plunge into darkness. I woke up staring at a lavish crystal chandelier. I was in a ridiculously soft king-size bed, and lying next to me was Evelyn, 7 years younger. Her features were exquisite, carrying a cool, unapproachable air even in sleep. I was back, reborn. Day 2 of our contract marriage. Before I could even process it, Evelyn's eyes opened. She sat up, the expensive silk of her robe slipping to reveal a shoulder like polished marble. The look she gave me was the exact same one she'd given my corpse in the ICU. Not hate, not love, just a vacant, hollow indifference. She picked a file off the nightstand and tossed it onto my chest. "Sign it." The papers didn't hurt, but the insult was sharp. It was the goddamn performance clause. Last time, I'd signed this thing and started my life as the family workhorse. The clause demanded that me, an Ivy League finance grad, generate $50 million in profit for Reed Industries within 3 years of marrying in. All to prove I was worthy of her. What a joke. Evelyn was already dressed in a sharp power suit, looking down at me. "Sign it, join the company, and prove your value." I sat up and picked up the contract. Under her cold gaze, I ripped it in half. And again, until it was nothing but a flurry of confetti. "You were great last night, by the way," I said, my voice lazy. Evelyn froze. I slid out of bed, ignoring her stunned expression. I took a credit card from my wallet and placed it in front of her. "Here's the account number. Do you mind transferring $1 million for spending money?" "Cole, are you insane?" She'd finally lost her composure. Her voice was laced with a furious disbelief. I yawned and leaned back against the headboard. Not insane, just enlightened. Life's too short, you know? Time to enjoy it. The bedroom door burst open. It was my mother-in-law, Karen, who had clearly been listening. She stormed in, pointing a finger at my face. "You useless bum. The Reeds don't support freeloaders. How dare you ask Evelyn for money?" I held up my hands, feigning innocence. "Karen, Grandpa Reed's will and the marriage contract are pretty clear. All assets are shared. You don't want to give me the money? Fine. I'll see you in court. You." Karen's face went purple with rage. Evelyn's chest was heaving. She stared at me, trying to burn a hole through my skull with her eyes. An entire minute passed. Finally, through gritted teeth, she picked up her phone. "Finance department. Transfer $1 million to Cole Evans's account." A moment later, my phone dinged with a notification. I held it up, showing her the screen with a brilliant smile. "Thanks, honey. Starting today, I'm going to work very hard to spend every last cent you have." I think I actually short-circuited Evelyn's brain. After the transfer, she didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. It wasn't until the next morning at the breakfast table that she finally broke the silence. "Since you have no ambition," she announced coldly, you can go to the Creative Initiatives Division. It's the quietest department. The Creative Initiatives Division, the official corporate dumping ground of Reed Industries. Everyone knew it was where they sent relatives they couldn't fire and old-timers waiting for retirement. A department full of has-beens and never-weres who hadn't produced a single successful project in years. The place I would have avoided like the plague in my past life. Now, it sounded like heaven. Sounds great, I said, taking the last sip of my orange juice. What time do I start? Do they dock your pay if you're late? Evelyn looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. She got up and left without another word. I showed up on time, carrying my wellness thermos filled with goji berry-infused water. I clocked in, and under the bewildered stares of my new colleagues, I opened my laptop and started a game of online poker. At 5:30 on the dot, I shut down my computer and left, the first person in the entire company to go home. After 3 days of this, I felt fantastic. That weekend was a Reed family gathering. I showed up in a t-shirt, shorts, and a pair of flip-flops. The moment I walked in, I saw a guy in a tailored designer suit fawning over Evelyn. Chase Vanderbilt, heir to the Vanderbilt Corp fortune and Evelyn's most obsessive admirer. He was also the guy who got the biggest kick out of humiliating me in my past life. The second he saw me, he pounced like a cat that smelled tuna. Well, if it isn't Cole Evans, he said, his voice loud enough for the whole living room to hear. He looked me up and down with theatrical surprise. I heard you got a promotion to the Creative Initiatives Division. Isn't that just the company's garbage dump? A grown man working as a trash collector. Real ambitious. A ripple of snickers went through the assembled relatives. Karen's face went rigid. She looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Evelyn frowned, but said nothing. I picked a drink from a passing waiter's tray and took a slow sip. You've got it all wrong, Chase. Every eye in the room was on me. I set down my glass. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence. You have to sort the trash, you know. I pointed to a bowl of leftover fruit peels on the table. That stuff, that's compost. Process it right, and it becomes fertilizer. Turns waste into something valuable. I then pointed to an empty wine bottle. That's recyclable. It has a future. Finally, I looked up, a smirk playing on my lips as I met Chase's eyes. And then I said, there's the third kind, the toxic waste. No nutritional value. Can't be repurposed. Just leaches poison into everything around it. That kind needs to be professionally neutralized. I raised an eyebrow. Wouldn't you agree, Chase? The color of Chase Vanderbilt's face went from pale to pink to a deep, throbbing crimson. You're calling me trash. He was trembling with rage, but couldn't form a single coherent comeback. The room was dead silent. The smirks on the relatives' faces were frozen in place. Karen's mouth was hanging open, her anger forgotten. I glanced over at Evelyn. She was trying desperately not to smile, but the corner of her mouth was twitching upwards, betraying her. For the first time, the look in her eyes held a flicker of something new, something interested. I ignored them all and walked over to the buffet. Excuse me, I said to the people standing in my way. You're blocking the lobster. Chase stormed out. Evelyn, either to get back at me or to put me in my place, decided to pay a personal visit to the garbage dump. She stood in my office doorway, arms crossed, staring at the poker game on my monitor. Her face was ice. So this is you enjoying life, Cole? It's great, I said without looking back, laying down a full house. Want to play a hand, boss? A department manager, standing behind her, looked like he was about to have a heart attack. He rushed forward to intervene. Ms. Reed, our division was recently assigned a new project. We were just about to put Cole in charge of it. The manager handed me a project folder with a look of utter despair. The City Memories IP project. I flipped through it and almost laughed out loud. The goal was to design a series of mascot plush toys based on city landmarks. But the prototypes in the photos were hideous, misshapen monstrosities that had been gathering dust in a warehouse for over a year. This was it. The perfect opportunity to fail spectacularly. If I could just drive this project into the ground, I'd be fired for incompetence. Then I could finally achieve true financial and personal freedom. My heart soared, but I put on a troubled expression. Wow, this looks challenging. Evelyn let out a cold smirk. You have 1 week to come up with a marketing plan. If you can't, you can pack your things and get out of this company. Music to my ears. At the strategy meeting that afternoon, I was practically asleep in my ergonomic chair. My colleagues proposed the usual tired ideas, flash sales, bundle deals, brand collaborations, and I shot them all down. Too boring. When it was my turn, I cleared my throat and presented my stroke of genius. No promotions, no discounts. We're calling it the Emotional Support Uglies Collection. I pointed to the PowerPoint slide featuring a plush toy of our city's brutalist City Hall building. A design so ugly, it was almost avant-garde. Limited edition, 999 units. We priced them at $199 each. I've even got the copy figured out, I continued. Life is hard enough. You deserve to have something uglier than you to keep you company. It can't do anything, but it will be there for you, silently being ugly. We'll lean into the awfulness. Make it so ugly it's cool. We're targeting the chronically online, emotionally unstable young adult demographic. The entire conference room was silent. My colleagues stared at me like I was a lunatic. The department manager's face had turned a sickly shade of green. He waved his hand in defeat. What have we got to lose? Let's just do what Cole says. Evelyn heard about my plan almost immediately. I was told she spent half an hour laughing coldly in her office. Let's see how he cleans up this mess. Chase Vanderbilt found a new hobby in telling everyone he knew that I was about to bankrupt Reed Industries, calling me a business visionary in the most sarcastic tone possible for trying to sell an ugly doll for $200. I didn't care. I clocked in and out on the dot every day, just waiting for the project to launch, fail, and get me fired. A week later, the product went live on the company's e-commerce site. I personally uploaded the cynical ad copy and then went back to my game. Less than 10 minutes later, my phone blew up. It was the IT department. Cole, dude, you have to check Twitter. Your ugly thing is going viral. I opened the app. It was the number 5 trending topic. Emotional support ugly. I clicked on it. The feed was flooded with screenshots and comments. I'm crying. This thing is so hideous, it's cute. It looks exactly how I feel when I have to wake up for work. Just ordered one. My fragile mental state requires something uglier than me for stabilization. $199? I'm not buying a toy. I'm buying a public declaration of my inner turmoil. It says, I'm ugly and I want to die, so I don't have to. You're not alone. Looking at it somehow makes me feel prettier by comparison. The comments section on the product page exploded. The limited run of 999 dolls sold out in minutes. Resellers were already listing them on eBay for $1,000. The traffic surge was so massive it crashed our company's server. The entire IT department was scrambling to get it back online. I was still staring at my phone when my office door was thrown open. Evelyn was standing there, holding a printout. Behind her, the CFO looked ecstatic. Ms. Reed, the Creative Initiatives Division is on fire. Over $1 million in sales in the first hour, and it's still climbing. Evelyn ignored him. Her eyes were locked on me, her stoic face filled with a level of shock and confusion I had never seen before. She walked slowly toward me and slapped the sales report down on my desk. At the top of the page, under Project Lead, was my name, Cole Evans. She stared at me, her voice deliberate. How did you do this? I looked up from my poker game, feigning annoyance. How should I know? I was trying to get fired. Damn, looks like another day farther from retirement. Evelyn didn't leave. She pulled up a chair and just sat there, across from my desk, watching me. I kept playing my game, and she kept watching. After an hour, I couldn't take it anymore. Can I help you with something, Ms. Reed? She pushed a file toward me. It was a complete post-mortem analysis of the ugly project. She had put it together overnight. I reviewed your entire marketing strategy, she said, her voice laced with a curiosity she couldn't hide. From the pricing model to the ad copy to the scarcity principle of the limited release. Every single step perfectly capitalized on the cynical, self-deprecating humor of today's youth. This wasn't a lucky shot. This was a textbook-perfect execution of consumer psychology. She looked up, her beautiful eyes filled with bewilderment. Cole, who are you? I almost burst out laughing. I'd asked myself that same question in my last life. Ambitious grinder? Pathetic simp? A loyal, faceless tool. Now, I was just a guy trying to coast. I closed the game and stretched. I don't know. Maybe I've just been playing too many games. It was a random idea. She clearly didn't believe me. I couldn't be bothered to explain. I put on my headphones and fired up a popular mobile on my phone. Hang on, let me just finish this match. I looked up at her. Hey, honey, can you Venmo me $50 for a new character skin? I'll carry the team. The color drained from Evelyn's face. She looked like she wanted to storm out, but she forced herself to stay. She just sat there, watching my phone screen. I picked a high-skilled jungler, muttering, just messing around, don't really care if we win or lose. But my fingers knew what to do. Anticipating enemy movements, perfect positioning, diving in, securing the kill. My mechanics were sharp, my game sense on another level. I was always in the right place at the right time. 20 minutes later, amidst a flurry of OMG, dude, you are a god messages from my hopeless teammates, I led them to a decisive comeback victory. I took off my headphones and stretched again. So what were we talking about? Oh, right, the project. Pure luck. I held up my phone with my Venmo QR code. Skin money, please. Evelyn stared at me in silence for a few long seconds before taking out her phone and sending the money. As she left, her expression was a tangled mess. She was starting to suspect that she had never known her husband at all. What I didn't know was that as soon as she got back to her office, she called her assistant. Give me everything you can find on Cole Evans since college. I want all. The more detailed, the better. Meanwhile, I was using the $50 she'd just sent me to buy a cool new skin, already queuing up for another match. Life was good. The emotional support ugly project made me a company celebrity. It also made me Chase Vanderbilt's #1 enemy. He probably figured he'd never have a shot with Evelyn as long as I was around. So he set a trap. Monday morning, Reed Industries stock opened and immediately hit a limit down. An explosive headline was ripping through the financial world. Core trade secrets of Reed Industries leaked. Competitors poised to capitalize on next quarter's launch. Billions in losses expected. Panic hit the market. Investors started dumping shares in a frenzy. The company was plunged into the biggest crisis in its history. A series of forged documents was anonymously leaked to the press by a so-called insider. My email correspondence with a rival company's executive. A record of a massive wire transfer into my personal bank account. All the evidence pointed to me, the CEO's freeloader husband, one of the few people with potential access to sensitive information. Overnight, I became a corporate spy, the bitter husband betraying the family for revenge. Reed Industries called an emergency board meeting. I was invited to attend. My mother-in-law, Karen, was the first to attack. She slammed a newspaper down on the table in front of me. You ungrateful snake. I knew you were no good, she shrieked, spittle flying from her lips. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us? Evelyn, divorce him immediately. Call the police. Send him to prison. The other executives chimed in. Ms. Reed, the damage to our reputation is catastrophic. He must be made an example of. We have to give the market and our shareholders an answer. Just then, the conference room doors opened. Chase Vanderbilt strode in, wearing the smug expression of a conquering hero. His father, the chairman of Vanderbilt Corp., followed behind him. Everyone, please, remain calm, Chase announced, his gaze sweeping across the room before landing on me with triumphant satisfaction. I've already investigated. The leak came from this good-for-nothing parasite. He dropped a thicker file of evidence on the table. Aunt Karen, Evelyn, as soon as you get rid of this stain on your family, the Vanderbilts are prepared to inject the capital you need to weather this storm. His offer was simple. I go, he stays. All eyes turned to Evelyn. She stood at the center of the storm, her face pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. The weight of the entire room, the entire company, was on her shoulders. She looked over at me, sitting in the corner, looking for all the world like I was about to doze off. I even let out a small yawn. A war was raging inside her. Logic told her the evidence was overwhelming. That Cole was the traitor. But her gut screamed that something was wrong. Was this the same Cole who had created the ugly phenomenon? The man who could verbally eviscerate Chase Vanderbilt with a metaphor about trash? The man whose casual gaming revealed a terrifyingly strategic mind? Would he really be stupid enough to frame himself with such clumsy evidence? Evelyn took a deep breath and walked over to me. Cole, she asked, her voice tight. Do you have anything to say? I stood up and stretched my neck, which was a little stiff from sitting. Say about what? I looked around the room, at all the faces that wanted to eat me alive. Are we done here? I like to get back to my nap. My attitude sent Chase over the edge. He pointed at me, laughing. Still trying to bluff your way out of this? The evidence is all right there. What are you going to do? Oh, right, I said, as if I'd just remembered something. I pulled a small flash drive from my pocket and tossed it onto the conference table. It skittered across the polished wood with a faint clicking sound. Here, I said, something to watch for fun. Everyone stared. I yawned again. Some creep kept sneaking into my office during my nap time last week. I explained lazily. The sound of his typing was really annoying. So, I stuck a micro camera in the potted plant on my desk. I was just hoping to catch him so I could bill him for emotional damages. The expressions in the room froze. A technician quickly plugged the drive into the laptop. A clear video appeared on the projector screen. The footage showed my office. An employee from the creative division, a guy named Lee, tiptoed in and sat down at my computer. He expertly opened my email client, forged a few emails, and then used some photo editing software to create a fake bank transfer screenshot. Even better, the video's audio picked up his phone call with Chase. Mr. Vanderbilt, it's all done. The emails and the transfer record are planted. It's flawless. Excellent. The money has been wired to your Swiss account. Head to the airport now. The video ended. Dead silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Chase Vanderbilt's face was a work of art, even more spectacular than when I'd called him toxic waste. The blood drained from his features, leaving him a ghastly gray. He collapsed in his chair with a soft thud, muttering impossible. That's impossible. Karen gaped, looking from me to Chase and back again, completely stunned. I let out another huge stretch and stood up to leave. Okay, can I go back to my nap now? This whole song and dance has cost me a perfectly good afternoon of sleep. I walked past Evelyn, pausing for a moment. I leaned in and whispered, so only she could hear. See? I told you not to make me come to the office. All this corporate backstabbing really messes with my sleep schedule. Then, without another look at her, I walked out of the room, leaving behind the chaos and a woman staring at my back with a look of utter shock, guilt, and a fiery intensity she couldn't begin to understand. The crisis was averted. I was a legend. The way people at Reed Industries looked at me changed overnight. The useless freeloader was now the hidden master. As a reward, Evelyn approached me, her usual frosty demeanor replaced with something softer. Cole, she asked, standing awkwardly in my office, now my designated nap room. What would you like as a reward? I was wearing a mask, about to catch up on some sleep. I thought for a moment, a Lamborghini would be nice. Evelyn's eye twitched. I lifted my mask and added seriously, the sedan we have is too slow. By the time I get to the farmer's market, all the good organic kale is gone. My bizarre reasoning seemed to short-circuit her brain again. After a long pause, she forced out a single word through her teeth. Fine. The next day, a brand new Lamborghini was parked in the driveway. I had just gotten the keys in my hand when Evelyn presented me with another document. It was an employment contract. But you have to agree to one condition, she said, her expression serious. Effective immediately, you are my new special advisor to the CEO. Name your salary, but you must attend all high-level meetings for A-list projects. She was trying to force me back onto the hamster wheel. I didn't bother arguing. I just grabbed the keys and went for a drive. The roar of the engine was magnificent. The next day, at the executive strategy meeting, I showed up in my usual beach shorts and flip-flops, found a corner in the back of the room, and prepared to nod off. Some project manager was giving an enthusiastic presentation about a massive new investment in retail. He was throwing around all the buzzwords: omnichannel synergy, big data, empowerment, immersive customer experience. It sounded impressive, and the board members were all nodding along. But Evelyn was frowning. Suddenly, she called my name. Mr. Evans, our special advisor. Do you have an opinion? Dozens of heads swiveled in my direction. I blinked myself awake and rubbed my eyes. Me? I glanced at the PowerPoint slide and asked 3 simple questions. 1. Why would a customer come to your store instead of someone else's? 2. Once they're there, why would they buy something instead of just browsing? 3. Once they bought something, why would they ever come back instead of it being a one-time thing? I leaned back in my chair. You haven't figured out the answers to those 3 basic questions, but you made a 100-slide presentation? What a waste of electricity. The room was utterly silent. The project manager stood frozen at the podium, sweat beading on his forehead, his mouth hanging open. The board members who had been nodding so eagerly were now lost in thought, their expressions grim. I paid them no further mind, pulled on my mask, and went back to sleep. I didn't see the look on Evelyn's face as she watched me from the head of the table. Her eyes were shining with the light of someone who had just discovered a priceless treasure. Chase Vanderbilt was grounded by his family after the corporate espionage fiasco, so things were quiet on that front. Evelyn's attitude toward me, however, was growing more complicated by the day. She stopped trying to force me to work, but the way she looked at me was becoming more and more intense. One evening, there was a major dinner banquet for a partnership signing. As special advisor and her legal husband, I was dragged along as her plus one. At the event, Evelyn was stunning in a designer gown, effortlessly gliding between titans of industry. I, on the other hand, had found my home at the buffet, methodically working my way through the lobster and king crab. Halfway through my second plate, a commotion broke out. I looked up and saw Evelyn, her face deathly pale, clutching her stomach and swaying on her feet. People rushed toward her in a panic. Chase Vanderbilt, seeing an opportunity for heroics, was about to push through the crowd. I put down my crab leg and frowned. This was familiar. In my last life, the same thing happened. She'd had an acute gastritis attack. I had been frantic, dropped everything, and carried her out of the banquet hall. I rushed her to the hospital and stayed by her side all night. When she woke up, all she said was 2 words. "Thank you." Like I was a diligent assistant. This time I didn't move. I just calmly took out my phone and dialed 911. "Yes, hello. I'm at the Ritz-Carlton downtown in the main ballroom. A woman is having a severe attack of gastritis and requires an ambulance." I gave the address and her condition, my voice clear and precise. 10 minutes later, the paramedics arrived. I walked over to them. The patient is Evelyn Reed, female, 24. History of chronic stomach issues. She's allergic to cephalosporin class antibiotics. Please take note. Evelyn, doubled over in pain and slick with a cold sweat, looked up at me, her eyes wide with shock. She probably never knew I'd memorized her medical history, right down to her allergies. The paramedics got her onto a stretcher. Just before they loaded her into the ambulance, she grabbed my wrist. Her hand was cold, her voice weak with pain. "Cole, aren't you coming with me?" I looked down at her, then gestured back toward the banquet hall, at the tables laden with food I hadn't yet sampled. "I haven't finished my lobster." I gently pried her fingers off my arm. My tone was flat. "Don't worry. It's just gastritis. It won't kill you. You're Evelyn Reed, after all." I watched the ambulance lights disappear into the night, then turned and walked back to my table. I picked up the crab leg I'd set down and took a bite. It was delicious. That night, Evelyn lay alone in a VIP hospital room with an IV in her arm. She stared at the empty room. Her phone was silent. No messages, no calls. She suddenly remembered a time years ago when she'd been sick just like this, and a young man named Cole Evans had watched over her, terrified, all through the night. A profound sense of loss and a strange, unfamiliar ache in her chest washed over her for the first time, completely drowning her. She covered her face with her hands, and her shoulders began to shake in silence. After the hospital incident, the climate in the Reed household shifted dramatically. My mother-in-law, Karen, did a complete 180. She started cooking me soups and bringing them to my room. "Cole, dear, have some soup. You need to keep your strength up." She even tried to slip me a black card. "I was wrong about you, sweetie. My old eyes just didn't see how special you were. Take this, buy yourself something nice. The pin is your birthday." I was in the middle of binging a news show, headphones on. I didn't even look up. If you need something, Karen, just say it. Otherwise, you're interrupting the best part. I pushed the card back. "Please." I had a wife funding my lifestyle and a Lamborghini in the garage. I didn't need her pocket change. Karen retreated, embarrassed. Evelyn, meanwhile, began her own clumsy attempt at winning me back. She started coming home from work on time, a miracle for the workaholic I knew. She even ventured into the kitchen with a cookbook, trying to make me dinner. The result was a near fire and something that looked like a lump of charcoal. I took one bite and almost saw the light. Looking at her face, smudged with soot but full of hopeful expectation, I offered a sincere suggestion. "Let's just order in. That new Michelin star place on the west side is good. I'll pick, you pay. Her face fell. That weekend, she approached me nervously with 2 movie tickets. Cole, would you want to go to a movie with me tonight? I took them and glanced at the title. Before Sunrise? A romance? So unrealistic. No thanks. I pulled out my phone and tapped a few times. I swapped them for Interstellar, a sci-fi classic. After we see it, I can write you a 3,000-word report on cinematic inspirations for future tech trends. Sound good? Evelyn didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her beautiful eyes were filled with exasperation. I don't want to report. I patted her shoulder with an expression that said, I get it. Right, just a formality. Got to follow procedure. Don't worry, Ms. Reed. I'll make sure it's insightful and forward-thinking. No matter how she tried, I deflected every romantic overture with a perfect application of corporate logic and employee mindset. She asked me for a walk in the park. I asked if she was scouting locations for a new urban greening initiative. She gave me a Patek Philippe watch. I asked if it was a new company-wide benefit and if I could get the cash equivalent instead. Finally, after I interpreted her invitation for candlelight dinner as a discussion on improving the company's nighttime security protocols, Evelyn snapped. For the first time, she stomped her foot like a frustrated child. Cole, can't you just pretend it's a date? I saw the shimmer of tears in her eyes and leaned back on the sofa, unbothered. A date still needs KPIs, Ms. Reed. We're the key performance indicators for this outing. The tables had completely turned. Now, it was her turn to feel the helpless frustration that had defined my past life. But my peaceful, pampered life was about to be shattered. The Vanderbilt family, backed by aggressive overseas investors, launched a hostile takeover of Reed Industries. They went all in, leveraging their entire fortune and partnering with a Wall Street private equity shark to launch a full-scale assault. Reed Industries' stock plummeted, hitting limit down day after day, wiping out tens of billions in market value. The banks started calling in their loans. Suppliers cut off raw materials. Worst of all, the company's core R&D team, their pride and joy, was poached overnight with triple salary offers. The cash flow was gone. Their patents were being challenged in court. Reed Industries, once a corporate titan, was on the brink of collapse. Evelyn's father collapsed from the shock and was hospitalized. Karen was a mess, crying day and night. A cloud of gloom hung over the Reed mansion. At an emergency family meeting, the uncles were already talking about filing for bankruptcy to salvage what little they could. I was sitting in a corner, mentally calculating whether my Lamborghini would be repossessed and if my allowance would be cut off. Suddenly, Karen rushed over and dropped to her knees in front of me. She grabbed my hand, tears streaming down her face. Cole, I'm begging you. Please save the family. We know you can do it. You have to have a plan. I frowned. Was it that bad? I just want to be a kept man. I didn't sign up for the whole company going broke. Get up, I said, helping her to her feet. Just then, Evelyn walked toward me. She had lost weight, and her face was a ghostly white. Her normally cool, clear eyes were webbed with red. She just looked at me, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. Cole, she said my name. Then, in front of the entire family, she slowly, deliberately bowed her head, a head she hadn't bowed to anyone in 24 years. I'm begging you, if you can get us through this, I'll do anything you ask. It was the first time she had ever begged. The first time she had ever let go of all her pride, all her ice in front of me. I looked at her, this woman who was the source of all my love and hate in my last life, and all my amusement and annoyance in this one. I was silent for a long time. Finally, I let out a long sigh. This is such a pain. I stood up and brushed the dust from my pants. Can't have my meal ticket going bankrupt, I guess. The next day, I was sitting in the CEO's office at Reed Industries. Evelyn Reed, the once unapproachable ice queen, was now my temporary assistant, responsible for getting me coffee and executing my orders. The entire executive team was gathered in the conference room, looking like students awaiting judgment. I stared at the stock chart on the massive screen, a waterfall of green, and said one word. Sell. What? The room was stunned. Liquidate o non essentialis. Sell everything you can, including your own stock options. Create the illusion of a massive cash out. Make the market think we're giving up. My first order left everyone speechless. This was corporate suicide. Evelyn, however, bit her lip, and was the first to support me. Do as he says. My second order was for the PR department. Leak a story that we've finalized a technology sharing agreement with DTS in Europe. Say we're preparing for a scorched earth defense. Force them to make their move ahead of schedule. Throw off their rhythm. My third order was for the CFO. Take every dollar we just raised, wait for them to buy up our stock and drive the price to its absolute peak, and then use all of it, every last cent, to short the overseas equity firm that's backing them. I was pulling the rug out from under them. My commands were unorthodox, almost insane, but with Evelyn's unwavering support, they were carried out to the letter. For the next 3 days, I barely slept. Reed Industries became my war room. I drew upon all the knowledge, experience, and memories of future market trends from my past life, predicting our opponents' every move and laying a series of interlocking traps. 3 days later, the markets closed. The dust settled. In the conference room, everyone stared at the big screen in absolute silence. On the screen, every stock associated with the Vanderbilt family had completely collapsed. The seemingly invincible Wall Street firm backing them had seen its share price cut in half, suffering catastrophic losses. Meanwhile, Reed Industries stock, after hitting rock bottom, had staged a monster rally, soaring into the green. Our market cap had more than doubled. We hadn't just survived the takeover. We had used their own momentum against them to raid their coffers, earning Reed Industries a profit of nearly $10 billion. We had won. The room erupted in thunderous applause. Everyone was looking at me like I was a god. Karen was hugging Evelyn's father, both of them crying with joy. That night, the Reeds threw a massive victory party. I was the center of attention, surrounded by people offering praise and congratulations. Evelyn approached me, holding a glass of red wine. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of love, awe, and gratitude that was impossible to miss. Cole, thank you. I took the glass from her, but didn't drink. Instead, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a document. I handed it to her. It wasn't a project report or a request for a bonus. It was a divorce agreement with my signature already on it. I watched her face freeze, my voice calm. Ms. Reed, your company is safe. My job is done. It was a pleasure doing business with you. I paused, then added the final line. Goodbye. The color drained from Evelyn's face. Her hand trembled as she took the document. Seeing my signature scrawled at the bottom, the tears she had held back for so long finally broke free. No. Like a child having her favorite toy stolen, she ripped the agreement to shreds. The pieces of paper fluttered down around us like a desperate, lonely snow. For the first time, in front of all these people, she lost all composure and began to sob. Cole, you can't leave. I won't let you leave. She turned and ran from the ballroom. A few minutes later, she returned, clutching another, much thicker document. She rushed to me and slammed it down on the table. It was an asset transfer agreement. This is everything I own. All my stocks, my properties, my cash. It's all yours. I don't want it. I don't want any of it. She grabbed my arm, her makeup streaked with tears. I'm sorry. I was wrong before. I don't want a tool. I don't want to be an ice queen. Her voice broke. I just want my husband. Cole, please. Don't leave me. I looked at her, this woman stripped of all her cold armor, crying her heart out. The hate from my past life, the resentment from this one, it all seemed to fade away. I sighed, took the thick pile of papers from her, and picked up a pen. She held her breath, watching me, thinking I was about to sign it. Instead, in the blank space at the end of the document, I added a new line. Addendum. Party A, Evelyn Reed, must unconditionally support Party B's, Cole Evans, right to a life of leisure, including but not limited to providing an unlimited gaming budget, a strict policy against being disturbed during nap time for any reason, and a commitment to grind for loot in Party B's video games a minimum of 3 times per week. I signed my name below it. Then, as everyone stared in shock, I pulled her into my arms. I whispered in her ear, remember this, you're the one who begged me to stay. From now on, I'm the one in charge here. It was a sunny afternoon. I was lounging by the pool, wearing sunglasses, deeply engrossed in a game on my phone. Evelyn, looking lovely in a sundress, walked over with a glass of freshly squeezed juice and gently held it to my lips. Honey, have some juice. What do you feel like for dinner? I'll have the chef make it. I took a sip, my eyes still glued to the screen. Whatever. She sat down beside me, holding out a business proposal. Oh, by the way, darling, when you have a second, could you look over this $10 billion merger agreement for me? She leaned in and kissed my cheek. Just give me the laziest possible advice, okay? I looked at her eyes, full of love and adoration, and smiled. Now, this was a life of leisure worth living. And